So this week I realised that I've just completed 200 lessons on italki learning Spanish, and given that I wanted to make a video talking a little bit about italki, I figured now's the perfect time. So yeah, when I first started italki, I didn't really know what I wanted to get out of it. I mean, obviously in a vague sense I wanted to improve my Spanish, but I didn't go into these classes kind of with a specific thing, like I want to learn this piece of information about this tense or, you know, whatever. I wasn't really super focused on grammar and stuff like that, so, you know, I really just wanted to try and communicate, see how I got on and see if I could improve that. When I started looking for teachers, I didn't really have too much in mind. Basically what I was thinking was I knew I wanted someone from Spain, because for me I've been focusing on the European Spanish accent and the way of speaking. So I knew I wanted someone from Spain, and I knew that I wanted to try and look for someone that was roughly around my age. You know, I didn't need to be super specific, but it just made sense to me. I guess I figured they would speak kind of like the equivalent of how I would speak in English but in Spanish, so that would be the best person to learn from. But anyway, that was what I looked for, and then I just kind of looked for the cheapest people to take a few kind of trial lessons with. So before my first lesson I was super nervous. I was actually a couple of minutes late because I was having a little moment before the classes, having a little panic, and but yeah, all in all it wasn't terrible, you know. It wasn't like super fun at first because I felt like really, I don't know, really nervous, really awkward. My Spanish was pretty awful. You know, I felt a bit weird, but it wasn't terrible, you know, and I could tell that the people that I was having these lessons with, you know, they weren't like bothered by the fact that I didn't speak very good Spanish. It was just, you know, that's what we were there for. We were there to practice. So yeah, I carried on and well, here we are. So anyway, I started just with community tutors, native speakers of the language, just having these kind of conversations, and I bought a couple of packages, like packs of 10 classes, and yeah, just kind of went along week by week, having 1 or 2 classes a week, and yeah, it was good. It was fun to kind of have that opportunity to try and communicate in Spanish, and the more you do it, the less kind of nervous and shy you become, the less you worry about the mistakes and the terrible accent and yada yada. And yeah, so I started to feel a little bit better, but you know, after these sort of 20 lessons, I felt like it was a little bit flat, right? I felt like it was just kind of, I was talking a lot about the same stuff. I didn't really feel like I was making much progress with my actual Spanish level, with my kind of vocabulary, my sort of abilities to speak, and so I started looking for other stuff and tested out a few professional tutors, different people with kind of, I don't know, different backgrounds and stuff. And so real quickly on kind of my perspective on the kind of community tutor versus professional tutor idea, not versus, but you know, what's the difference and my experience with those two. A lot of people talk about how learning from a native speaker and not a professional tutor isn't a great thing because, you know, they don't have necessarily a deep knowledge of the language, how it functions. They're not really going to be as ready or as willing necessarily to make corrections, especially of little things where, you know, it's wrong, but it doesn't necessarily, you know, muddle the sentence that much, like I know what you meant to say. And so you can create these kind of bad habits or enforce these kind of bad habits and things like that. And I definitely do think that's true. You know, when I have classes with community tutors, I notice people they correct me less, they let little things slip and things like that, and that's what I notice. I'm sure there's other things that I don't notice. But on the other hand, I've had a lot of classes with professional tutors on italki, and obviously this is just my experience, but I've had a lot of classes with professional tutors that I haven't really enjoyed that much. And it's because a lot of people seem to have kind of like a really solid preset idea of what in the language is important, in what exact order of things, in what exact order you should learn things and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, I ended up having these classes where I'm sat kind of naming fruits or, you know, trying to remember vegetables and all this different stuff. And it's not like it's bad to learn any of those kind of stuff, but for me, you know, I'm focusing on the most important things for me first, and then I'm going from there, you know. So right now, you know, I'm nearly a year into my Spanish journey. You know, I can talk about things like basketball, about movies and TV series, about language learning, about sort of mindset, basic psychology sort of things, like quite openly and freely. But if you asked me to show you around my kitchen and tell you about all the different things that are in my cupboard, all the foods in my fridge and all that kind of stuff, I probably would be a little bit stumped on quite a lot of vocabulary. And I don't think that, you know, one thing's better than the other, but I do think it's important to focus on what you think is important and what's going to be useful for you. So I found that a lot of professional tutors weren't quite right for me. And to cut a long story short, where I've landed now is what I found is most useful and beneficial for me is to have structured conversation practice with a professional tutor that is kind of able and willing to correct me and to help me keep advancing within the language. So by structured conversation, I just mean that, you know, they come each week with different themes, different topics, different kind of questions. So I'm continually being kind of taken out of my comfort zone to try and figure out how I can explain or describe certain things, and that gives the teachers more of an opportunity to suggest new words or more natural ways of saying things, etc, etc. So what to look for in an italki tutor? Obviously I'm not like the grand expert of italki, but I do have a bit of experience and it served me quite well, so I just want to share kind of my thoughts on what I look for. So the first thing is, I do think it's really important, at least at first, to zone in on one specific accent or way of speaking, or one particular country. The second thing that I think is really important, and for me, is that I only ever pick tutors that have experience with learning other languages. To some people that might sound a little bit harsh, but I feel like it's important for these people that I'm learning the language from to have an understanding of what it's like to learn a language, because, you know, they understand the troubles, the awkwardness, the kind of all the different emotions and experiences you go through while learning a language, and also they know kind of what's been effective for them, what hasn't been effective for them. So, you know, I guess they've got kind of like a better filter. Again, that's just for me personally. The third thing I always ask from my tutors, especially when I start like with new people, is to try and explain things as much as possible in the native language. A lot of Spanish tutors, at least in my experience, at least have a decent level of English where they can explain or translate most words that they would use in general conversation into English to be able to help you to understand what that word means. But I always find that I prefer to try and understand what a new word or phrase or whatever means by having it explained in the language that I'm learning, in Spanish, right? It's the same like as if you, I don't know, if you have like a child, for example, and you say a word and they don't know what that word means and they ask you to explain it. You can't use some other secret code to explain it to them. You have to find other ways to explain it. So I try and stay in the in the target language as much as possible, and I ask my tutors to try and do the same. Now, it's not like the be all and end all if they have to say something in English, right? But I don't want that to be the first thing that they do. Okay, so how to get the most out of these classes? The first thing I think is really important to do is to prepare topics, or to ask your tutor to prepare topics beforehand. It is fine to go into these classes and just have an open conversation and just do whatever, and if you feel like that helps you more, then by all means go for it. But I think a lot of the time you can end up re-going over lots of topics and you don't necessarily get a whole lot of new vocabulary and new content, and you're not really progressing, right? So to have different topics each week I think really helps you to make consistent progress. The second is to take notes, or again ask your tutor to take notes of new vocabulary words that are introduced in the class. So if a teacher gives you a new word or you come across a new phrase with whatever you're doing, make a note of it and take it away from that class. I don't think you necessarily need to go away and like repeat it, write it out loads of times, do loads of flashcards and things all the times if you don't want to, but just the act of kind of noting it down will help you to kind of just like sink it deeper into your brain a little bit. So have some sort of note-taking system. So the third thing is something that I've only just started doing a lot more recently, and something that I got clued into a little bit from a video by Lamont from Days of French and Swedish, which is to, with permission, record your classes. So if you're using Skype or Google or most video conference things right now, you can record your classes. And what this does is obviously it gives you the opportunity to then go back over the class afterwards. You can maybe look at some of the things, some of the mistakes that you made. You can re-listen to the teacher speaking. You could even go through, if you wanted to, cut out all the bits of you talking and then just stitch back together the teacher talk, and then you've got this like audio file or whatever for listening practice, right? And so yeah, I think if you can, and with permission, try and record the classes, because that's definitely really helpful. And the final thing is to remember that these people want to help you and they don't care if you make mistakes. I've told a lot of people about italki, and every time they've told me it sounds like a great idea and that they're not ready because they're just going to make too many mistakes. There you go, there's a mistake. They're just going to make too many mistakes and it's not going to be worth it. And I understand that you do need a bit of a base in the language to be able to start communicating, but it's probably not as much as you would think, and it's important to remember that it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. It's just little by little, it's part of the process, and for all the different teaching methods that I've come across on italki and maybe not agreed with, I've never ever had a negative experience in terms of like someone having a bad personality, someone making me feel bad in classes or anything like that. So remember that, you know, it's just for fun, it's just a language, it doesn't matter, you can make mistakes, and that's what we're all here for. And so yeah, I guess that's kind of overall my thoughts and experiences so far on italki that I just wanted to share with you guys. Hopefully it's been of some interest or use to you. If you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to leave me a comment below. I always like to hear from you guys, and yeah, thank you very much for watching today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Hasta luego!